Today on the Frugal Filmmaker, I review a torpedo. Actually, I'm reviewing the Stayblcam, which is a portable, collapsible Steadicam / glide cam style of device where you've got a gimbal, you've got a counterweight, you put your camera on one end, you balance it, and then you float away with smooth shooting. This one is actually made for very small cameras like cell phone cameras or GoPros, and it costs about $75. You'll get this in its collapsed form, and it's made from a sturdy plastic, and on one end you'll notice it has a camera mount, which is for cell phone cameras, which is why you have these two different size slots here, which you can stick your camera into depending on the size of it. This also unscrews, revealing a 1/4-20 thread, so if you just want to put your regular camera or have a regular camera mount, you can use that instead of the cell phone mount. On the other end is the counterweight, which also has a 1/4-20 thread or female 1/4-20 thread, so you can mount an accessory there. I'm not exactly sure what you would put there, but it's available if you need it. Pulling the stabilizer apart reveals that the middle ring is actually your gimbal, which is connected to these telescoping rods on either end, which goes to your camera mount and your counterweights. And the gimbal is actually a 2-axis gimbal, not a 3-axis gimbal. So if you were to try and turn the shaft here in the middle like any other stabilizer like this, you'll notice that you can't. There's no bearing in the middle. It's just fixed. And that's not necessarily bad. It's just different and something that I haven't seen on most other stabilizers like this or that are made like this. Also, when you go to balance this, they tell you to put your camera in one end in the slot here, like your cell phone or GoPro camera, and then you are to balance this horizontally, meaning that you hold it by the gimbal and then you extend or shorten either end of this until you achieve perfect horizontal balance, meaning that you're holding it in one hand and it's not tilting in either direction. It's actually level. This is really unusual and goes counter to every other direction I've seen to balance a stabilizer like this, which is to do a drop test, and they don't tell you to do a drop test at all. If you're unfamiliar with a drop test, it's where you balance it to where you think it should be, and then you let go of it in a horizontal position, and it takes 2 to 3 seconds to go to a vertical position. But they tell you not to do that. Okay, that's different, not necessarily bad. We'll see how it flies later. And once you have the Stayblcam balanced according to their directions, you're then told to take your ring finger and your pinky finger and gently wrap them around the lower shaft here so that you can control it with these 2 fingers while you hold it. You hold the gimbal with your other fingers. Now, this is quite unusual again because normally with the other stabilizers you would just barely touch it with your 2 fingers in order to achieve panning, but this is how they're telling you to straighten it or to hold it steady or to assist yourself in holding it steady. Again, this is kind of different because you're almost always in contact with that lower rod down here, and as a result, at least I would suspect, this is not going to be the stablest or the floatiest of shots, because if you've ever used a balanced stabilizer before, you know how touchy they are, and if you don't want to touch it with anything because it just goes out of whack so easily. So that was unusual, but the proof's always in the pudding. You know, none of this would matter if I got smooth shooting, so let's go ahead and look at the test footage. So after practicing a little, I took this out into the hallway and just shot the hallway with no subject, meaning no person in the foreground to distract, where you could just look at the shot by itself. And as you can see here, it looks okay except for some side-to-side jitter that's introduced, and I'm guessing that's because that's my wrist moving left to right to try and steady the shot or keep it pointed in the same direction. But because there's no middle gimbal or there's no bearing in the middle holding that center shaft, you're getting jitter there because motion from my body is going right through my arm into that gimbal, which is then going right into the shaft and then into the camera, because there's nothing to separate the movement of my body from that shaft, essentially just going right to it. I shot video with both my iPhone 4S and my LG G4 and had this same left-right jitter issue. I really wanted to like the Stayblcam. I think it's well made, it's super compact, and it balances lightning fast. In fact, I've never seen any other gimbal stabilizer balance this fast before. Unfortunately, some of the takeaways are that this mount right here that you're supposed to put your cell phone into covers up parts of the screen. And if you're using a more specialized app like Filmmaker Pro or Cinema FV5, it's going to cover up buttons on the screen that you need to press. But the fact of the matter is, the footage that I shot with the Stayblcam just wasn't usable in my opinion. That left-right jitter caused by my wrist movements is just a deal breaker. Now I think it could be solved maybe if you had a bearing on the outside or the inside that would allow that center shaft to spin. But as it stands right now, I just can't recommend the Stayblcam. And that's my review. If you'd like to see other reviews of filmmaking stuff, please come to thefrugalfilmmaker.com. Thanks for watching.